We have our 5th championship case today, William Byron. Before we talk about that, I wanted to thank everyone. We have just hit 2,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for that. I will do something in the upcoming week or so to, I guess discuss that and just do something fun, I guess. Still trying to figure out what I'll do, but thank you so much for 2,000. It genuinely means the world to me, so to everyone who has supported me, thank you. Anyways, let's get on with this video. William Byron, yes, he has had a season, to say the least. 2 wins on the season, one at Atlanta, the other at Martinsville. So 2 very different racetracks, a super speedway and a short track. However, back in the early stages of the season, the first quarter or so of the season, William Byron looked like the championship favorite. He had 2 wins. He had led the most laps. He had a few top 5s, a few top 10s. Ever since then, it's been not good. He had 4 top 5s early on. He has not had a top 5 since his win at Martinsville, and he has not had a top 10 since Sonoma back in June. It has been a bad summer for William Byron, and yeah, they are going to need to do something. So before I even talk about playoff points here, we need to talk about something else, which is rare to talk about something else. William Byron needs to get back on the consistency track. He was so consistent at the beginning part of the season, leading laps, running up front, top 5s, top 10s, but they haven't done that since. Some races they've had bad luck, like Kansas. He had gotten himself up into the top 5, and they had a tire blow on the front stretch, and they had to go a whole lap on a flat tire to go a few laps down. Pretty much ruined their day. Sure, they've had those moments of bad luck, but at times, like this past weekend at Watkins Glen, they qualified great, but they had to drop to the rear, and they were terrible. They were outside of the top 20 probably the whole day. So there are days like that where they need to fix up. They need to do something different. Make the cars go faster, I don't know. But they cannot have those bad performances in the playoffs, especially with such a small gap in the playoff points. So, yeah, first thing, they got to get more consistent. They need to run up front more like they did at the beginning of the season, just because it's been a struggle of a second, third of the season, the 2/3, whatever it's been. But yeah, let's look at the stats for this year. 2 wins, as I said, Atlanta, Martinsville, 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and he also has 3 stage wins. He currently has 14 playoff points. He is 10th in the regular season standings, which gets him 1 playoff point. But yeah, as I said, it's been a struggle of a later half of the season. He looked to be a title favorite early on, but not looking that way right now. Anyways, this championship case is going to be a more difficult one, but let's talk about it. That first round, Darlington is actually a good race for him. Back in the spring, yeah, he didn't finish in the top 10. He didn't finish in the top 5, but he was leading with 3 laps to go, and Joey Logano, of course, put him in the wall with just a handful of laps to go. Byron falls back to 16th, 17th, wherever he finished in that race, but Byron looked really, really good in that race. He led a lot of laps in that race. I can't remember if he won a stage, but he looked very good in that race, looked like a favorite to win that race. And if they can bring back that same speed, they should run top 5, contend for the win there, collect stage points, do what they need to do. Second round is at Kansas, or second race in the first round is at Kansas. And as I said, he was actually running pretty good in the spring before a tire issue. So once again, if they can bring that same speed to Kansas like they did in the spring and just avoid any kind of problem, they should be fine. So those first 2 races are looking good. And then Bristol has been a pretty good track for Byron. He finished 3rd in this race last year on the pavement. He's looked good. So that first round, the lack of playoff points and the current inconsistency is my biggest concern. But if they can run like they did earlier in the season, I think they can get through that first round. Second round, you got Texas, Talladega, and the Roval. At Texas, he's had some good runs there. Last year, I think he finished runner-up in the fall race. Did good in the All-Star race, was 5th or 6th. This year, Hendrick Motorsports wasn't great at the All-Star race at Texas, so it's a bit of a question mark, but then you go to the next 2 races, Talladega and the Roval. Byron has proved that he is actually a pretty good super speedway racer. He got his first career win at Daytona in 2020. He also got a win at Atlanta this year. He's led a lot of laps at Talladega, Daytona, Atlanta. So he knows how to run up front. If he can get a stage win there, get a good chunk of points in that race, or even potentially win that race, I think that would be huge. And then as for the Roval, he's been a decent road racer. Got himself a few poles at Road America. I think the Roval he might have gotten a pole, but he led a lot of laps in this race last year. Could have potentially won if it wasn't for a late race caution. Spun out a couple times after that, but he's looked good at the Roval before. Could he potentially redo or re-perform like that? I don't know, but Texas is a bit of a concern. But for this championship case, I'm going to say Byron wins Talladega. He's going to have to win Talladega. Not have to, but if he doesn't want to be in a tight point situation, a win at Talladega would help out a ton, obviously. So, yeah, Talladega is still Talladega. He could still get caught up in a wreck. But if he can stay up front there, get a good bit of points, stuff like that, and then go to the Roval and just have a good top 5 run, he won't have to worry about it. As for the round of 8 is probably actually his best round. If he can get to this far, this is probably his most favorable round. You look at Las Vegas, he was running top 10 all day there in the spring. I think he ended up finishing 5th, so a good run there at Las Vegas in the spring. As I said, like his 2 teammates finished 1-2 with Bowman 1, Larson 2. So Hendrick Motorsports looked strong there in the spring. So if he can bring back that same speed, finish up front, that will be good. But at this point, the struggle is playoff points. He doesn't have a lot of playoff points right now. He only has 14, and it's going to be tight on the playoff points. You know, guys with the small amounts are going to get eliminated. So he may even be below the cutoff line at this point if, you know, Elliott, Larson, Logano, Chastain, Harvick, guys like those get more playoff points that are going to be above him. So he's going to have to outscore them or he's going to have to win. So that's going to be difficult. But Las Vegas, he could potentially run top 5, maybe even top 10. As for Homestead, he's the most recent winner at Homestead. I think that plays to his advantage. But, you know, no one's been there in the next-gen car, so it's tough to say. And they've been so inconsistent, you don't know where they're going to finish in that race. But look at this last race. Martinsville, he's the most recent winner there. He's the only guy to win there in the next-gen car. Could that potentially be a match made in heaven, I guess you could say? I said Logano and Elliott, I think I said that is the best case scenario for a cutoff race if they're below the cutoff line or something. Well, Byron in this situation, I'm going to say he's probably going to be below the cutoff line in this situation. So, you know, if he's only 10 or so points back, he could potentially gain on stage points and finish in the top 5. But I think it could come down to a win. You're going to see guys like Elliott and Larson with either a big points advantage or they will have already won. Maybe even a Tyler Reddick could have won because Homestead's in there. Logano could have been up. He could have gotten a lot of points. Harvick could have gotten a lot of points. So I think Byron's going to be below the cutoff line coming into this race. It's just a matter of how much. And it could come down to a must-win, but he could win at Martinsville. I think it's very possible. Have the same speed he did in the spring. I know they're doing some changes to the car because of how bad the race at Martinsville was in the spring, but bring back that same speed, replicate that performance you put back in the spring, and maybe it's a possibility. And as for Phoenix, Byron hasn't done terrible at Phoenix, but he hasn't done great. He hasn't led a ton of laps. He hasn't run really up front, but he's had some top 10s there. So I guess he could hope and pray, obviously, that something happens with the leaders, late race caution. But, you know, Hendrick Motorsports, they've won the last 2 races at Phoenix, so that's got to give Byron a chance or give him a little bit more hope, if you will. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult road for William Byron. Earlier in the season, I would have had this championship case up, and it would have been much easier. But the fact of the matter is that they have fallen off a lot. So yeah, to recap this, first of all, it's not playoff points. It's actually, hey, you need to find that speed and consistency you had back in the spring because it has been rough the last few months. Second, playoff points like everyone else. Next up, that first round, you should be okay, but it could be difficult. You just got to bring that speed you had earlier in the season at Darlington and at Kansas and just hope you don't have bad trouble. As for the second round, a little bit more difficult, Texas especially, but if Byron can perform like he's performed at super speedways in the past and then also have put forth a good performance at the Roval, he should get through. As for that final round, it's going to be extremely difficult, even if he has good runs at Homestead and Vegas, because he's behind in the playoff point situation that he may have to win at Martinsville, but he is the most recent winner, so that could play to his advantage. Then as for Phoenix, you're going to have to, you know, maybe hope that some guys have trouble or that there's a late race caution, but at the same time, your organization, Hendrick Motorsports, has won the last 2 races there, which should be, or last 2 championship races there, I should say, which should be somewhat of a help. So yeah, earlier in the season I did not expect this video to be this difficult to make in terms of, you know, trying to make a case for him, but ended up being that way. Byron has kind of just had a struggle of a second half of the season, however long it's been. But yeah, struggle of a season for William Byron after such a promising start. Hopefully they can get it back together, make a run for the championship. We'll see how they do. But yeah, tomorrow I don't know who it is. I just closed my laptop. I'm dumb. Let's see here. It's going to be, it looks like, Kevin Harvick. So we'll see how that goes. We'll give the case for him. But as for everything else, once again, thank you for 2,000 subscribers. It means a lot to me. I'm very excited for that. You know, it took us over 3 years just to hit 1,000. It's been less than 2 to hit 2,000. So thank you so much. But yeah, any news that comes out, obviously, I'll talk about. Next championship case we'll talk about tomorrow. So I'll see you then.